So where we've left the Sotah is that she's traveling up to Jerusalem with her husband and with the two scholars who are traveling with them, just to make sure everything goes well during the journey. And then the fourth Mishnah, so we're in the first chapter of Sotah, the fourth Mishnah picks up. They bring her up to the great court, the great Sanhedrin in Jerusalem. This is the court of 71. So this is the court that would judge, for example, a capital case or the case of a city which had gone to idolatry, or someone who's found in the field murdered. This is a big deal. It's a big deal to get the great Sanhedrin. And the Mishnah continues, ayamim aleha. Well, I've translated this as they awe her. Ma'ayamim means to make someone fearful. They impress her. A lot of people translate this and they admonish her. They overawe her. That's probably the best translation. They try to overawe her in the same way that they do to witnesses in a capital case. So in a capital case, the president of the court will make a speech and he'll say, look, this is really serious. You have to be careful about what you're saying. A person's life is at stake. And it's the same here. Uma'ayamim aleha kaderech shehein ma'ayamim al adei nefashot. So they give her the same awesome speech that they give to the witnesses in a capital case. Ve'omerla, and they say to her, they're trying to get her they're really trying to get her to back out. They really are. So they say to her, Biti, my daughter, harbe yain oseh, wine does much. Harbe sechot oseh, laughter does much. Harbe yaldut oseh, youth does much. Harbe shchenim haraim osim, bad neighbors do much. There are all kinds of reasons why you might have got into trouble, and it's a natural thing. It's not necessarily your fault. Al ta'asi lishmo hagadol shenichtav biktusha she'imache al hamayim. Don't do this. Don't do this to the great name that's written down in holiness, that it should be rubbed out in the water. So what we're going to do eventually is we're going to write some verses with God's name and we're going to rub them out in water and we're going to give her the water to drink. So there's some parallelism here. Anyway, we're going to blot out God's name. We're going to blot out God's name and we're going to appeal to her just to confess, in order that we shouldn't have to do this. Really interesting statement, actually, as to the scale of values of the sages at the time of the Mishnah. Really interesting statement as to the scale of values. And you can see this positively or negatively. The Mishnah continues, Ve'omrim lefaneha devarim she'eina kedai l'shom'an. And they discuss in front of her matters which she isn't really worthy of hearing. And the Gemara explains that actually they tell us stories about people who have confessed. So, for example, Yehuda, when he's confronted with the story of Tamar, when Yehuda has sex with his daughter-in-law Tamar, and when she shows him the evidence, he says, "You are more just than I was." He doesn't have any hesitation about confessing to what he's done and about the fact that she's more just than him. And according to the Gemara, these are the kind of stories they say. In other words, they say, look, there's no shame in confessing. I mean, there's a financial consequence. There's financial repercussions, of course, because if she confesses, she's going to lose her financial settlement. She's going to be divorced without her ketubah. So the Gemara is it's being a bit romantic in sort of trying to persuade her to confess. Anyway, and it minimizes her value when it says that that she doesn't deserve to hear, and it continues vehi v'chol mishpachat beit aviha, and neither she deserves this nor any of the family of her father's house. And then it continues, well, if she does confess, im amra tmea ani, if she does confess, shoveret ketubata v'yotza, she gives him a receipt for her ketubah. In other words, not that she gets the money for the ketubah, but she loses all rights to the ketubah, and she gives him a document that establishes she's got no rights to the ketubah. And again, according to the Gemara, this document is written out in the most degrading terms. In other words, asserting that she's a prostitute. Im amrat me'ani, if she says, I'm defiled to you, if she confesses, shoveret ketubata v'yotza, so she gives him a receipt for ketubah and she goes out. But if she says, I am pure, so they take her up to the eastern gate, which is Nicanor's gate. We've heard about Nicanor's gate in the Mishnah of Yoma. It was donated actually by a rich man from Alexandria, Nicanor. And that's where they take people who are in a state of impurity. Now, when you bring your sacrifice to the Beit Mikdash, you have to be there with your sacrifice. And we've already learned that intention and presence is critical. So you have to be there with your sacrifice. But if you're impure, for example, from if you this is a sacrifice of purity after childbirth or after tzara'at, then you can't go into the Beit Mikdash until the sacrifice has been accepted. So this gate, Nicanor's gate, is a sort of in-between place. You can stand outside but bring your sacrifice in. So they bring her to Nicanor's gate. Shesham mashkim et hasotot u'musharim et hayoldot u'mutaharin et hamutzorarim. So that's where they give the Sotah, the women suspected of adultery, the water to drink, and that's why they purify women after childbirth and purify people who have tsarat. V'chohen ochez bi begadeha, and the priest seizes her clothing. Im nikru, nikru, im nifru, im niframu, niframu. He grabs her clothing. The Gemara says he grabs it at the neck. And if the clothes are torn, they're torn. If they become unstitched, they're unstitched. Ad shehe magalet liba, until he uncovers her breast. V'soter et sarah, and he undoes her hair. He undoes her hair. And the Rambam comments here, by the way. It's a really crucial comment from the Rambam. It really tells us something about the intent of this Mishnah. The Rambam comments, "V'chachamim makpidim bi nevula ubi gnuta." The sages are makpidim. They're scrupulous. They're scrupulous here, and we'd expect, to say they're scrupulous. Not normally we'd say they're scrupulous in their justice or their fairness or in giving tzedakah. Anyway, the sages are scrupulous, he says. Bi nevula uvi gnuta. They're scrupulous in her degradation and in her embarrassment. According to the Rambam, this is supposed to be a degrading and an embarrassing scene. And then he goes on and then the Rambam says, "V'halacha k'chachamim," and the halacha is called the chachamim. What does he mean by that? Well, Rabbi Yehuda is going to disagree. Rabbi Yehuda omer, im haya liba na'eh, lo haya megalehu. Rabbi Yehuda says, look, if her breast was beautiful, he doesn't uncover it. Rabbi Yehuda is worried about this being a turn-on for the young Kohanim in the Beit Mikdash. So he says, look, if her breast was beautiful, he doesn't uncover it. If her hair was beautiful, he doesn't undo it. Rabbi Yehuda is going to retain some kind of semblance of kind of normality here. But the Rambam says, look, the sages don't go like that because they are absolutely resolute in their determination to make this an embarrassing and degrading ceremony.